everyone, welcome to Babies with Knives. Today we're going to be doing a character creation for Swords and Wizardry. Above me is Matt Finch, Creative Director of Frog God Games. Hey Matt, how are you going? How's it going?
Good. Doing
Good.
well. How about you?
Doing great. I'm your host, Lalla Twiddle, aka Alice, and below me is Brandon Powers.
Howdy, howdy.
And I'm deciding to be extra gnome today in messing up all my intros, but we're having fun. So, what are we going to make? That's a question.
All right. So we're rolling up a character for Swords and Wizardry. It's original D&D. Brandon, are you the one rolling up the character?
Sure. I've got some dice here.
Awesome.
So it is a 3d6 roll in order kind of system, right?
Well, it can be. That there's two different views on that. I'm definitely in favor of 3d6 straight up, not 4d6 drop the lowest. 3d6 because that's going to be what matches with stuff, even though some of the scores are going to look abysmal if you're used to it. But you go with that. But the question is, do you want to roll up what do you want your character to be whatever you roll up, or do you want to pick what you're going to be? And I let people rearrange the stats when they want to know what they're going to be, or you can go totally old school on it. Roll up a character, and then it's like Traveler. I wonder who he's going to be.
I'm going to go with I wonder who he's going to be right now.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to roll. We're going to roll in order, 3d6 straight up.
And
what you got? Now,
and one question I've got, because I know that in first edition, our stats were not in this order of Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wisdom, Charisma. Was that the old version, the 0 edition, or did you just go ahead and go with that because that's what everybody uses these days?
It's because it's what everybody uses these days. So part of it was just to get people to sort of think about it in a way that made sense to them. But also there was the slight, this is all a legal issue involved in producing this game because it's rewriting rules, and so there are some legal requirements to it. And so the order of the stats, it was preferable to go with something that was based on the legally usable source material from the system reference document that Wizards of the Coast came out with, rather than to put it into the original order in which they showed, which I think was, what was it, Strength? I can't even remember the original order it came in.
Yeah, I think it was like the second one, but yeah, it's been so long for me.
Yeah, I think it was Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom. Constitution, Dexterity, Constitution, Charisma. That's my guess for the way it was.
I remember Strength was top, Charisma was bottom, and then it was like alternating physical, mental, I thought. So, so Brandon, what's your number so far?
I got a strength of 12 with a 642.
Okay.
A dex of 14, which is pretty amazing, and is my best, at 644. Mm-hmm. My constitution, which anybody who plays 3rd edition or probably beyond will think's horrible, is 7 at 331.
Well, we're going to go over each of these stats once I get them inputted. What's your int?
Int is 9 at 531.
9, okay.
And then my last two rolls generated 13s at 661 each.
Okay.
And so I came out ahead in this game.
That's a good character.
Yeah, that's my feeling on it.
So after we get each die rolled, we go to a chart. So for strength, he got a 12, and that means it's going to be a +0 to hit modifier, a +0 to damage modifier. So I don't have to put anything in those. It's a 1 to 2 to open doors, and it's a carry modifier of +5. So 1 to 2, and carry modifier of +5.
And that 2-hit modifier, only fighters actually benefit from that, correct?
Matt?
That's correct.
So for dexterity, Brandon got a 14, and that's really high because there's only 3 categories in dexterity. So he got 13 to 18, so that's going to be +1 for missile weapon to hit bonus penalty, and so that's +1. And then it's going to be effect on armor class is better by 1 point, so 1 point of AC. So +1.
And the reason it says better by 1 point is because the game you can decide whether you want to use the seriously old school descending armor class where a lower number is better, or the more recent modern approach in which, as one would expect, that a higher armor class is better. for you. So, but this one you can do it either way. So it's better by one, whichever way it goes.
Awesome. Very few people understand how to deal with THAC0 these days, but we remember THAC0.
Well, this is way before THAC0 even.
True. This is. So for your con score is the lowest category, which is 3 to 8, and that's going to be a -1 hit point modifier. And then it's going to be 50% on raise dead survival. So if you die and someone tries to raise you, it's going to be 50% chance of that happening.
Which is pretty brutal, actually. You picked the wrong stat to get the 7. You want charisma is a dump stat in almost all of the older versions of the game. The one benefit to a high charisma is you can get people to actually go into a dungeon with you rather than saying, "Yeah, right, no, sorry," you know.
Or in some of the not quite as old, it's the benefit of being a paladin. It allows you to be a paladin.
Yeah, because when you're doing this whole roll it up and see what you are, that means if you didn't roll a 17 or an 18, you're not a paladin. So.
Yep. So then we go to intelligence. Intelligence of 9 puts you at the 3rd category. So that's going to be 1 to maximum languages addition, 5 on spells, 5 max spell levels.
That's right. So you're not casting 6th level spells, 7th level spells, 8th level spells if you're a magic user.
Mm-hmm. And you have a 45% for a chance to understand your new spells. When you're trying to learn them, you have a 45% chance. And then you have for min-max number of basic spell understanding for able per level. For an int of 9, you have 3/5. Can you explain that a little bit, Matt?
Sure. That would mean that when you are getting a new level of spells, the main number is the maximum number because it's classic Vancian magic system. It's done like the Wizard in 5th edition. Pretty much, you've got a certain number of spells that are in your spell book. You can prepare those spells and bring whatever your choices are out of that book. That maximum spell number is the maximum number of spells of that level that can go into your book. That's the most that you can use. And then there is another interpretation of that as well, which is that you can have any number of spells in your book, assuming that you understand them, but that on an adventure, the maximum number of spells that you can carry is that maximum of 5. So it's interpreted 2 different ways.
Awesome. For wisdom, you have a 13, which is the exact benchmark you need in order to get a 5% XP bonus. There is just a toggle on and off for wisdom. So 13 hits that toggle mark, so you'll get a 5% XP boost. And then for charisma, well, you're kind of charismatic, so maximum number of special hirelings that'll follow you, that'll believe in you, and that'll go into a dungeon with you is 5. 5 stupid people will believe you are awesome.
I can convince 5 people to take a hit before my con comes into this.
That's yes. Right. Which, given your con, is probably important.
So let's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about what class you're going to be now that we know your stats.
So I, looking through them, flip through. I don't want to be in the front lines, and I'm not smart enough to be a good mage. So Druids, I've got the prime attributes for to get that additional 5% XP bonus, which is kind of nice. And they're a good spellcaster using more wisdom stuff. Ranger is kind of nice because you start with those 2 hit dice, which will give me a little padding, but I'm just thinking that's people will look at you more to fight. And so Thief, I think, is where...
In the front line is not where you want to be. Although with the 2 hit dice, you could...
You could swing it for a while, but
you know what? That's where you would look around the table at the other people and say, "What are should I be a ranger or should I be a thief?" So,
yeah,
yeah, and so I think thief is where I'm probably looking to end up.
Something else that we should mention to our viewers who are not familiar with a system like this, that's a throwback to be this old. Not everyone's going to level at the same rate. Everyone has their own XP chart, and as you just heard, people can get experience bonuses. So you'll have 3rd level characters sitting at the table with 8th level characters at times. I literally had that back in the old days. It is very...
It was awesome.
Yeah. You would, because you would have the 3rd level character hiding in the back going, I can't take any hits! Please don't let them near me! Okay, so you're going to go with Thief. Let me scroll down to Thief so I can start writing stuff. So, you're going to take Thief. What do we need to put into the character sheet for Thief? Start talking to me and I'll start typing.
Well, I'm looking through, just trying to figure out, maybe you know them off the top of your head. What is the max levels different races can achieve in Thief?
I absolutely do not know that off the top of my head. It's been a while since I actually wrote these, and that's not something that really comes into play very often. It's probably in the descriptions of the character class. I don't think that anybody is. I don't think a thief has a max for any of the different races.
Oh,
I think that's the open one where you're not limited.
Well, as I remember, Thief was always one of those classes that was like, I don't fit anything else with my stats, so I'm just going to make a Thief. Because that'll get me through at least a little bit until I have to roll a new character. And it won't work for anything else. I'll just roll a Thief.
Well, I think I'll go with Dwarf, just playing off of that horrible constitution and that they're normally a fairly hardy race.
Sure.
Okay.
And
so, go ahead, Alice.
You're playing a male or female?
Male.
Okay.
And so I'm going to have climb walls at 85%.
Climb walls at 85%. So let me find that. I cannot find where the climb wall is. Can you help me with the character sheet a little bit to find climb wall? Movement, weight, base move, outside, indoors.
They might just be notes because that's a thief-specific kind of ability.
Yeah, I think that might be notes. So we'll put notes, climb.
Now, I should throw in here. Now, when I'm running the game, I let dwarves be thieves. Technically, looking at the read as written rules, thieves have to be fighter. Dwarves who are thieves have to be fighter thieves. There has to be a fighter element to a dwarf, and that actually goes way back into the Gygaxian theory of what the demi-humans was that if you were an elf, you had some magic abilities, and you had to deal with that. If you were a dwarf, you couldn't do anything else without some fighter abilities in there. That was a key thing, and that's sort of the way that he handled, and it's sort of interesting he did it in advance, this whole issue of, if I'm an elf, I'm a human with pointy ears kind of issue that people talk about. Well, in original D&D, that's really not the case. There were real differences between the mythological, species that were out there. But we probably don't want to get into a double-classed, a multi-class character for this. So let's go ahead and build your Dwarven Thief because, like I said, my house rules, that's fine. Everybody's going to have house rules. But I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah.
I had that point to make about it's not a game of humans with pointy ears being elves. There are actually built-in hardwired differences between them.
And I think a lot of us that have been around for a long time have had that discussion with some players. It's like, well, this, it's not just that you're going out into the world and deciding the same way that a human might be. Is that some things are just kind of built into that race. That it's not a nature versus nurture. It's completely there's a nature on parts of this. And so I can totally understand that.
Me too. But yeah, today we're not doing dual classes, so thank you for house ruling us. Brandon, what's your character's name?
One other thing, the sheet. Are people able to see the sheet that you're filling in?
Absolutely. They are seeing step by step.
We should give credit where credit is due on that. That's not something that Frog God did. Like I said, there's a lot of fan support for the game out there. This is one that was done by Rob Griffin, and then it was made into a form-fillable character sheet by the Wizard's Chest. So this is a third level fan sort of benefit here.
Well, thank you.
Here you go, Alice. I'm going gnomish on your thing too. I just completely lost what I was saying.
And yeah, Alice, I see on the sheet it's spellbook/thief skills, and so you just fill them in that.
Awesome.
So yeah, climb walls is 85%. Delicate
Yep.
tasks and traps is 25%, which means that racially I am the best at doing stuff like that because dwarves get a +10 on that to start with.
Nice. You have a
Yeah,
better chance than most.
yeah. Hear sounds is 3 and 6.
Hear sounds.
Hide in
3% and
shadows is
6%.
15%, which dwarves, they're not going to be the best, but they do get a +5, so they're better than half elves and humans because they're small in
Awesome.
comparison.
And what else?
Move silently at 25%, once again getting a +5 there.
Okay.
And then my favorite out of my first ed and more second ed time dealing with making thieves was open locks and just the dwarven locks and such. And so that's a 15% that they get a +5 because they're used to dealing with that kind of thing.
Awesome.
Mechanics and all that.
Now, there's one more thing about dwarves, which is that
Okay.
you never go into a dungeon without a dwarf, because there are virtually no passive radar systems in original D&D, but
Except for dwarfs.
the
Stone
dwarves
cutting.
have one. The dwarves are able to detect any trap made of stone. They may not know what it does, but they will always notice something that is odd about stonework. They will always notice that a ceiling may collapse. And so in that sense, dwarves actually operate a lot more like modern thieves modern rogues in OD&D than, for example, that they did in advanced D&D later. This is a very, very important thing not to go into a dungeon without a dwarf. So and since you're already a thief, that sort of doubles up the capacity that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, their stone cutting allows them to notice if the dimensions of an area are wrong because it's made of stone. They can tell if they're on a slant. They can tell if something's wrong. So they can tell a lot of information. Dwarves and gnomes are my favorites. So they're awesome. Hey, Brandon, what's your character's name?
I'm going with Vorsk, Vorsk.
Vorsk. Okay.
Dwarves also have dark vision at 60 feet, which is once again fairly handy as a thief type.
Yep. And it's important to note that dark vision isn't like they can just see in the dark. It's kind of like a black and white, whereas in different editions of D&D it has changed to like heat sense and this and that. But dark vision is kind of just grayscale black and white, and so you really don't see as much detail as you'd like. It is not all encompassing for stuff. You can kind of see outlines of that's different. But it can get you through places. That's the important part.
Well, the main failing, of course, of the halfling thief who doesn't have the ability to see in the dark is that they're having to wander around, with a torch, which is not going to help out very much with the sneaking around aspect of things in the dark.
Absolutely. 8?
As a thief, Alice, in special abilities, I also get backstab at first level, which is when I'm attacking with surprise and from behind. I get a +4 to hit and do double damage.
Nice.
I also get +2 bonus on saves against devices like traps, wands, staves, or other magical devices, which is kind of the origin of that dwarven anti-magic that has gone through so many different iterations over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And as a dwarf, I get +4 on... Oh, I'm sorry, that was thief. As a dwarf, I get +4 on any save versus magic. And so those two combo to giving me a really good resistance on some types of magic.
Yeah, that staff of lightning bolt aimed at you is you're about as good against that as anybody can be.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, that's awesome.
Another thing is, since my prime attribute is of Dex 13 and I have a 14, I get a +5% experience that stacks with that wisdom experience that I got.
Nice. So that goes up to 10% bonus. Nice. You have an XP bonus of 10%. And thieves,
Yeah,
as I
no,
remember,
that's
level
pretty sweet.
pretty quickly, too.
Yeah,
they
are the fastest, I believe.
Yeah.
I know
I think
in second ed that they were.
Yep, I think they are. So you will be like 10th level when a bunch of other people are like, well, the cleric, I think, was one of the slower ones. The cleric's going to be like, I'm 3rd level. And the rogue's like, I'm 10th level. Let's
The
go.
slowest one is the magic user. And I think maybe rangers or druids. Somebody else is pretty slow, but it's one of the less usual classes. But out of the regular ones, the magic users are super slow.
That's right. It was the magic user. I knew that it was like, a caster type. I didn't remember if it was
Well,
cleric or magic user.
And once again, I'm speaking from second because that's my most recent memory. Clerics started off a little faster than magic users and then slowed way down in their like middle advancement, where mages kind of had just a real standard progression the whole way. And at that point, it would kind of be going after gear and such, right? Alignment.
Alignment, your age, which, age does matter in the older games. So, how old are you?
On alignment, I must be either neutral or chaotic in alignment. I'm going to do neutral.
Okay.
For age, do dwarves have a age guideline in this?
No, not this is before the advanced D&D stuff with the details about age came out. So, you got no idea. Figure you're 100.
Sure. So we'll go with 100.
Yeah, we'll look at Lord of the Rings and we'll say, yeah, you're probably 100.
Cool.
There you go.
The main things that you're going to want to get the main thing that we've forgotten to write down so far is the saving throw number, because you start with a generic. There is a single saving throw.
Yeah.
But you will get bonuses using that number according to what class you are, what race you are, and that sort of has the effect of creating a very jagged progression in the saving throws. But everybody starts, I think, at a 15, except for fighters who start at 14. And then it goes down with each level. So as the DM, it's kind of nice because you can just subtract.
And so 15 is that saving throw number.
Okay, right. 15 is your saving throw number. What about your hit points?
It is a D4. Do we max our first level hit points, or do we roll those out?
Well, in read as written, you just roll them out. What I usually do, again, is I start players out with the maximum at first level, and then they roll after that. But, since you've got your Constitution score, you would start out with 3 at first level.
Yep. So he has 3 hit points, and yes, that does sound as deadly and awful as it sounds.
And as a note to people who are familiar with the later versions of hit points, fighters and such are going to be at D8 hit points. Mages and clerics are D6s. Clerics are at D6s. I think the magic user was at the D4 as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the magic user is still D4. Because
I
played a lot of magic users and got my face pounded.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the rogue is not meant to, or the thief is not meant to be that frontline fighter that you start seeing in editions at 3rd and beyond. They are supposed to be using their sneak attacks and going out hiding, not just getting a flank. And
they sort of added the concept of the swashbuckling, lightly armored rogue being a type of fighting class in later editions. That's not the way that it was done in the early ones. The idea, just like you said, Brandon, was that this is someone who's moving only under the very best circumstances into combat, and you're gonna want to do it sneakily, and then you can be a nuke because you're doing double damage with your attack, and you're +4 to hit from behind as well. But that's where it is. You're looking for where can you place that nuclear attack. Same thing with the magic users with only one spell. It's not getting refreshed while you're in the dungeon. You're waiting and waiting and waiting for the perfect moment to use your spell. And then again, the spells in the older editions are way more nuclear in effect than they are in, for example, 5th edition. When you lay a sleep spell, you can take out 16 goblins. It just game over for the other side when you use it right. You only get it once. If you've only got one spell memorized, but you are pretty much guaranteed to be able to pull out an all-out victory, with your magic user that one time. Then you're going to want to head back and rememorize.
Yep. It's the 10-minute venturing day. You guys have one volley in me. Make it good. You guys do the job until you guys go, I can't take it. Yep.
Well, that was part of it, is that it wasn't. You were never supposed to cast every encounter, and the people that I see that. A bar fight breaks out or something like that, and they're just like, oh, magic, guys, I'm out of magic. Well, it's like, did the situation require that much of what you've got? As to the tactical nuke nature of thieves back in the day, we did a Night Below, and I think this was a GM added encounter, but it was basically a party that was sent out to hunt us, and there was a rogue halfling with boots of striding and springing, and the cleric dropped a darkness spell, and so he would jump into the darkness, sneak out, come out, attack us for the backstab, and then jump back into the darkness. And so he was only coming out about every other round or something like that, but we were all really afraid of him when he was doing it.
When he came out, it really, really hurt. So we were very, very scared. Well, I think.
So, as for just a quick backstory on him, I'm thinking that with his sickly constitution and such, that he was kind of a reject of the dwarves, and left for the humans that at like a church, or maybe just discovered in the wild, where he was left out in the elements as a sacrifice to the gods. And so he grew up in a culture that he doesn't is not his racially assigned culture, and is kind of a little bit bitter about that, and looking out for number one, which is the reason for that neutral alignment. And probably would fight with ranged weapons using that +1 to hit that I get from my dexterity, and that horrible constitution to avoid it getting hurt, but would much sooner try and just go out and get things done without fighting necessarily, which the charisma, you learn to talk when you can't take a punch.
Well, it works very well because you do have a good charisma. Did we want to go through and deal with the equipment, or are we just going to skip that?
No, just equipment is so much, this and that type stuff.
I absolutely agree. But yes, now you have a basic understanding of the thief and a demonstration of how quick and easy it is to make characters, with us talking a bunch in between. So, anything anybody wants to add before I close this up?
Thank you so much for coming out. It's been a real pleasure this morning.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Matt. It was awesome hanging out with you for a little while. So, thank you for watching, and make sure to tune in again. Bye.